All right, and I'd like to thank my BAC members for working out at the tables and for helping to sponsor this. I'd like to introduce to you Sara Jacobson. She is a personal friend of mine. She is the manager of sourcing analytics for the Carlisle Group. Did I say that correct? Carlisle Group. She is originally from the East Coast. Her job was in Washington, D.C. She lived there for how long?
32 years.
Like all of her life. And she was fortunate enough to be able to come back to Illinois, still work for them from home. How cool is that, guys? She has been with Carlisle since February of 2014. Prior to that, she was the manager of revenue accounting for BET TV. She was also a senior accountant for Ultisat in Maryland, and before that was the senior financial analyst with FTE in Chicago. Sara has her bachelor's in accounting from DePaul University. So please put your hands together and welcome Sara.
Awesome, thank you guys. I did not know that you were being bribed with extra credit today, but I'm glad that you did. So I have a quick presentation. My goal is to have this be really informal, casual. Please, speak up if you have questions at any time. This is not I'm not here to talk at you. Definitely want it to be interactive. If you guys have anything that comes up, feel free to interrupt or save them for the end. I'm just going to walk through basically my life as an accountant, what I've done, what my background is, and then offer you some pieces of advice that I've learned along the way. So hopefully it'll be interesting for you guys. So, like Amber said, I got my bachelor's in accounting from DePaul. I started at community college back in Maryland. When I graduated high school, I was not ready for college. I just wasn't. I was not mature enough. I was not making good decisions. School was not a priority, so I took some classes at Montgomery College. I went there for almost 4 years to get enough credits to have almost an associate's degree. So that might speak to you a little bit about the priority that I was making school at that point in time. But that did change. I did realize that I wanted to continue my education. So I started taking some business classes at Montgomery College. Had to take the full suite, right? You take a little bit of marketing, a little bit of finance, a little bit of accounting, and ultimately decided that accounting was for me, and I'll speak to why in a little bit. So I then went to DePaul University. I was a lot older than all of the students. It was a little bit of an interesting scenario. Lots of 18 to 22-year-olds there. I was 21 coming in as a pseudo-sophomore. My credits did not all transfer over, something that might apply. But a lot of them did, but I was taking a lot of undergrad classes, a lot of kind of general education classes at DePaul before I got into the real business-focused classes. I did finally graduate about 5 years later with already having, almost 4 years of community college under my belt. So the point there really is that, there's not a specific track. Take your time, make sure you figure out that you're doing what it is you want to do. It's a commitment both in financials and in time to pick a career. So don't feel pressure or rushed to do so. You'll get where you need to be when you need to be there. So then just a quick run through my professional background. Amber did walk through this, and I will also speak a little bit more about what these jobs entailed and what my roles were when I did them. But I started right after college at FTD. This is in the suburbs of Chicago. My first job out of college, an amazing learning experience, a great job. I started as a financial analyst and then moved up to a senior financial analyst. Then I moved back to the East Coast to Ultisat. This is a satellite communications company. I was a senior financial analyst there as well. Then I moved to BET, Black Entertainment Television in Washington, D.C. The most fun job I have ever had or ever expect to have in my life. Really cool industry to be in. And currently the Carlisle Group. Is anybody familiar with the Carlisle Group and what they do? So the Carlisle Group is the third largest private equity firm in the world. Private equity buys and sells other companies for a profit, kind of like Richard Gere in Pretty Woman, if you've seen that. That's what he did. And so that's what I'm doing today, manager sourcing analytics not a very descriptive title. I will tell you more about that shortly as well. The key here, I think, is that each of these jobs are very unique in terms of what the company does, right? FTD is a flower company. They work for florists. Altisat helped launch satellites into space and provide satellite communications. BET ran a television network, and the Carlyle Group buys and sells companies. So one degree, one person, lots of different industries, and lots of career growth. So I told you I'd talk about why I chose accounting, right? So I hate math. I've always hated math. I got a really bad grade in high school in a math class, and that pretty much sealed the deal for me that I was not a math girl. I did start taking accounting classes though at Montgomery College, and this was like a new type of math. It worked in my brain. The second bullet there says it just fit, right? I was taking accounting classes. It made perfect sense to me. The logic was just innate in my brain. It was logic, it wasn't math. I saw a lot of people around me not being able to speak the language. People who had to take accounting classes for another major were really struggling. They were suffering. I was in my element. It was clear that this is what I'm supposed to do, or something that I can be really successful at. And of course, accounting is well known to be a financially successful career path, and I think that was very important to me when I was making decisions going through college. I imagine it's important to a lot of you that you're going to be able to support yourself, support a family, be financially independent and stable in your future. So post-graduation, there's a lot going on. This is a big time for anyone, whether it's post-graduation with an associate's, whether it's post-graduation with a bachelor's. There's a lot of things that are going to go on and a lot of decisions that you have to make. I imagine for most people, the first step is going to be getting a job. My advice to you, if you're able, is to work with a recruiter. I've gotten every job that I've ever had except for one through a recruiter. The benefit there is that you have someone who's going to financially benefit from finding you a job, and they do all the legwork for you. Right? So you have a conversation with a recruiter, you give them your credentials, talk about what you want, and they go to bat for you. And the more money they negotiate on your behalf, the more money they make. So again, it's in their best interest to get you a good job and get you a well-paying job. I cannot tell you how much that has benefited me and my career and made the process of getting a job a lot easier. I also want to let you guys know that salary negotiation is really important. As an employee, a potential employee, even a college graduate looking to get your first job, you may not feel like you have a lot of leverage, but you do. This is the #1 time where you have power in your position as a potential employee or an employee at a job. So I encourage you to negotiate your salary 100% of the time. The worst thing they can say is no. They're not gonna not offer you a job because you asked for more money. And in most cases, someone looking to hire a well-qualified candidate is actually less powerful than you as the well-qualified candidate are. So please, ladies especially, I know there's a lot in the media right now that that's not something women are known to do. Negotiate your salary, ask for more money, ask for more vacation or different benefits. Whatever it is that's important to you, that is the time to do it. And so, school, does how you perform in school really matter? The answer to that, in my opinion, is it depends. My career path was to not go to any of the big four, public accounting companies. And why was that? Because GPA matters. GPA really matters if that's the path that you want. So if that's what you think is important to you, if that's what you think your trajectory looks like, then you need to start focusing on your grades, because they will look at your grades, they will review your school transcript in depth, and it matters. My school transcript was not ideal at the time, so I decided that I wanted to go private. If you're going private, or if you're going to a publicly traded company outside of one of the public accounting firms, your GPA really doesn't matter. Not to say that it's not important that you're successful and do well in school, but if you're looking to get a job, they're not going to be looking at that. They're going to look at the fact that you graduated, the fact that you took the right classes, that you can present the appropriate technical knowledge in an interview. So just something to keep in mind. based on where you think you might end up or want to go. Another big question after graduation is, should I go back to school, right? Should I go study for the CPA? Should I get a master's in accounting? Should I get an MBA? Not something that anyone else can decide for you, definitely your choice. My choice was to do none of the above, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I had a job and I was, being paid a regular salary. There was no major motivation to do so. That's probably the primary reason, right? I've yet to reach a point in my career where my bachelor's in accounting was not sufficient to continue to make progress forward, both from a title position, from a financial position. And I thought about getting my CPA, but I was concerned that I was going to pigeonhole myself a little bit too much in just accounting. So I think if you are passionate about accounting, if you love journal entries, if you love learning about new accounting rules and laws and SOX and all of those sorts of things, then it's an option for you. For me, the pieces of accounting that I loved were a little broader than that. It was more about the logic, more about the modeling, more about the analysis. So I was concerned that a CPA was going to really just stick me in the accounting bucket without a whole lot of room for maneuvering. Again, a personal choice. You need to take into account what you excel at, what you think your career path might look like, and make a decision about whether you're going to continue your education. After graduation, in theory, you will be getting your first accounting job of sorts. It's a big step. It's a lot different. There's a lot that you're going to learn. So I have on here street smarts versus book smarts, right? In school, you're learning about journal entries, debits and credits. You're learning the technical side of accounting. It's really important. Are you going to use it in your job every day? Absolutely. Is it the bulk of what I used in my career as an accountant? No. The majority of what I used really came from street smarts. I would say maybe 40-60. The technical base is always going to be important. It's going to be a requirement to do your job. But what you're going to learn in that first job and in subsequent jobs is really going to be the bulk of what you need to continue to succeed. I'll talk a little bit more about what those might be, I think probably on the next slide here. All right, so I put together career as an accountant, good, the bad, the ugly. There are bullets on every single slide. They start with a lot of bullets here and they get progressively smaller, but there are aspects of all as an accountant. So the good far outweighs the bad and the ugly. I think a lot of these are probably things you're familiar with, but maybe not. So accounting is well known to be one of the most, I think, financially stable fields you can be in, right? Regardless of what the economy is doing. If the numbers at that business are good or they're bad, they need someone to tell them what they are. So if a company is doing really well, accountants play a key role. If a company's not doing so well, accountants play that same key role. So anywhere in the country, any industry, any level of company, they have accountants. And it's maybe a necessary evil, if you will, but there is going to be a job for an accountant. You also play a really important role within that company. So accountants in the accounting group in a company in general has a lot of impact on what the company does and how it's done. The accounting department almost always manages the processes for a company. So things like how billing is done, how AP is done, how sales are done, how commissions are calculated. Accountants have their hand in all of this. And for me, that's really cool, right? I want to go to work and I want to know what's going on. I want to understand how the company works and I want to be able to affect that. I don't want to just kind of sit and do what I'm told and have my head down. I want to have an impact on where I'm working. Every accounting role that I've had, while that varies in kind of the nature and the extent to that impact that you can have, accounting is a lot of times kind of the boss. You always have regulations on your side and rules, right? So it's out of my control, it sucks, it has to be like this. You have a lot of power as an accounting group within any company, and that's cool, I think. So you also can affect a lot of special projects. I have a couple of examples on here. Processes to me are my bread and butter. I love them. It's maybe not everybody's niche, but it is mine. I really enjoy looking at processes and seeing how I can improve them. I like putting new ones in place. I think that's fun. And I imagine, some of the classes that you'll take, if you haven't already, will have some conversations around this, because it is a significant part of an accountant's role in a company. We had an IT group at FTD. So FTD is a florist company. They're segregated into 3 parts, one of which is the technology group. And they had a lot of capital expenditures, but no process around how to manage them. You may or may not know that CapEx is very SOX heavy, meaning there's lots and lots of process regulations required, approvals required in order to have things be CapEx. So I was able to work with people from all over the company, IT, sales, upper management, CFO, and run the process for putting the process in place. That was cool to me. It's still what they use today. It was just a matter of getting a workflow down, getting appropriate signatures, writing memos on why it needs to be the way it needs to be that way. But it was cool. I think it's fun. Also special projects, so things like modeling. I don't know, so let me back up a step. So my role at FTD was kind of a hybrid role. It was half accounting, half financial analyst, meaning I did both backward-looking and forward-looking roles, right? So I closed the books at the end of the month, but I also was responsible for the forecast for my group. Having exposure to both of those was a big turning point for me. I realized that I really preferred the latter. I liked looking forward. I liked modeling things. I liked creating Excel spreadsheets that were actually models that could forecast revenue and expenses, that had metrics and drivers that all of the other things were dependent on, versus, again, journal entries, reconciliations, all of which are important, but not my favorite thing to do. I'm repeating myself here, but I think that's cool. That's why I'm an accountant. I like it. So I think I mentioned this as well. You do have exposure to upper management, and that's important. You want to be able to have a conversation with people that are at the C level, at the SVP level, and as an accountant, you often have the opportunity to do this. And it's really important, I encourage you in your careers, in your education career, to talk to people of all different levels, right? You need to be comfortable speaking with a CFO, because I guarantee you, as an accountant, the CFO is going to ask you a question. You need to be comfortable speaking with your peers, and you need to be comfortable speaking with subordinates. In the role of an accountant in any company, you're going to have the opportunity to do all of those. You're going to have to do them all. It's going to be very important to your role, so I encourage you to try and do that as much and as well as you can. If you can't tell already, I like accounting, so I thought it was very engaging. I really enjoyed the work that I was doing, and I was consistently challenged, and I still am. That's a key piece for me in a job. The number one reason that I've left jobs is because they've kind of dead-ended, right? The challenge is gone. Every time you go to a new accounting position, or if you're in the right role, there is always something that is going to challenge you, be it a special project, be it a wonky process that you have the opportunity to fix. That opportunity is available. The potential to expand your career and grow is really unlimited. Depending on what path you choose, there are so many options out there. I've taken a little bit of a left turn. I'm not a strict accountant today. That's an option. You can also make your way all the way up to the CFO, right? That's also an option. If you're going Big Four, or if you're going public accounting firm, there's partner opportunities. It really goes on. And it's applicable to any market, any industry, any company. It's really the backbone of a lot of corporations. I also think it's cool to be in the know. So as an accountant, you have a lot of advanced information about what's going to happen at a company, right? People have to tell you that there's going to be a layoff because you need to be able to account for it in the books. You need to be prepared to have the financial impact of that ready for the company. You know if they're going to hire people. You know if there are going to be cost of living increases this year versus bonus payments, right? You just have that knowledge. And maybe I'm nosy or a know-it-all, but I like knowing what's going on. Yes?
Can I just verify that for you, for everybody here? Every organization that I've worked for, every firm that I've worked for, if you wanted to know what was going on, who was performing well, which departments were performing, which supervisors, managers, and so forth, divisions, you talked to the accountants. They always knew. They always knew.
Yep. And I kind of like being the one that people want to come to and ask about things, right? I know the answer to that. I'll tell you or I won't. A lot of things are very confidential, but that's a conversation that I like to be in a position to have. And then, so jumping off point, it's, like I said already, it's really, it's very flexible. It can be very flexible, right? So you have the option to really choose to be a strict accounting, but an accounting background is going to benefit you no matter what you do. If you go into accounting and you do it for a while and realize it's not for you and you want to go to marketing or you want to go to the finance group or you want to go to sales, all of the above, having the knowledge that an accounting degree and accounting information provides you is not only going to help you be successful and just make the job that you're doing easier, but it is a huge carrot to dangle in front of any potential employer. They want people who know how business works. Accountants know how business works. So if you go into the sales part of an organization having an accounting background, you're not going to be that cowboy that is making all of these rogue sales deals or breaking the process. They're comfortable that you know the importance of process and you know that they know that you're going to follow it. So accounting the bad. I spent a long time talking about the good, clearly on purpose. I won't spend quite as long here, but I want to make sure that this is a frank conversation with you guys. So as an accountant, you're going to start at the bottom, 100%. There is what I would call a good chunk of grunt work in accounting. I like to call them journal entries, reconciliations, variance analyses, and management reporting. You do them every single month, right? You have the same journal entries for the most part. You have the same schedule, the same reports. It's going to take you a while at any job to kind of ramp up, right? There's a learning curve, so it's going to be interesting for a long time. But there's going to become a part of your job as a true accountant that is repetitive, that you're doing the same thing over and over again. It is what it is. There's lots of other things that can offset that. But just know that as an accountant, that's going to be a chunk of what you spend your life doing. So the workload in the same vein, it's very cyclical, right? You've got to close the books at the end of every month. Most companies start to ramp that up around maybe the 25th to the 27th of the month, and they finish maybe the 5th of the month. It all matters on how the weekends fall and that sort of thing. Throughout that period of time, you are going to be working a boatload. A boatload. I would have used a stronger word if this wasn't a school. But you need to just be prepared for that, right? Know that for the first 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks of any month, you maybe work a regular, 40-hour work week. If you work for a good company, they let you work 30 hours during those weeks because at the end of the month, you're going to be working 50, 60, maybe more hours, and it's going to happen every single month. You're also completely dependent on the people around you, right? Like, so as an accountant, it's cool because you know everything, but you don't have everything that you need to do your job. You don't really have hardly anything that you need to do your job. You've got to rely on people throughout all parts of the company to get what you need. So again, back to being able to talk to people, making sure you do that well. It's hugely important that you're developing relationships with the people around you because they're going to be the ones giving you the information that you need to do your job every single month. So mess that up, they can really mess up your ability to do your job well. And then here, the literal buck stops here, right? So you are literally dealing with the financials of the company. So if something is wrong, if something is curious, if there's a question about something, that is on you. It is your responsibility to fix it, to explain why it is. The people that you talk to are not going to care that you got report X from Susie in AP. They're going to care that it was wrong when it went into the books. So you are ultimately responsible for all of those sorts of things. Which leads me into mistakes happen. So the accounting the ugly, right? Mistakes happen. They happen. I've made a lot of them. They are sometimes costly. They sometimes have a really big effect on the company that you are working for. And in my mind, that can be really scary. But it's okay. It's always been okay. Accounting, while it's very strict and kind of very boxed, there's always next month, right? So you can always reverse it. You can always adjust it. Might even be after an earnings release, right? That you realize that you've made a mistake. It's a big deal. We've reported numbers to the public, and now there's a significant change to those numbers. It really sucks. It's not a pleasant situation to be in, but it is okay, and it can be fixed going forward. But just know that that's going to happen, right? Know that you're going to make mistakes. People around you are going to make mistakes. They have a big impact on the company. They can always be resolved. Holidays is on here as well. So, like I mentioned, your unbalanced but predictable workload. I can think of a lot of holidays that are at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. You're going to have to work. You have to work on holidays. 4th of July, you're probably working. Right up to Christmas, you're probably working. Memorial Day, Labor Day, all of those that are at the end of the month, the beginning of the month, you're working. Most companies that I've worked for have allowed us to take an extra personal day at another time of the year. But just be prepared for that. It's part of the job. What I like to call fire drills. So I think you'll find fire drills in any company. I would define a fire drill as someone in upper management setting everyone's hair on fire because they decided to pay attention to something that is now really important to them. It was not important for 9 months. And it needs to be figured out, and you need to report back to them immediately. This, I think, is a predominantly accounting issue. People in accounting have to deal with this on a regular basis. I cannot tell you the number of times that the CFO has decided that they want to look at the commission structure, and they want to know 3 years history of what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and they want to know it yesterday. So just be prepared for that sort of thing, right? It's going to happen. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong. I think it's just the nature of being an accountant. So back to kind of my career progression. Before I go, are there questions at this point? Anybody comments, feedback? Everybody's good? You guys are all really attentive. Thank you. I don't see anybody on their phone. So, career progression. You guys curious about kind of money you're going to make as an accountant? Does have any idea what kind of money you might make as an accountant? Does anybody want to throw out a guess? Maybe a first accounting job? Go ahead.
$60,000 a year.
60? It's not 50 or 60?
60.
60? Go ahead.
So about 45.
45? So I'm going to say somewhere right in the middle of that. I think as a first-time applicant for a job after graduating with a degree from accounting, you can expect to make between exactly $45,000 and $60,000. That's coming out of the gate. Certainly the market that you work in is going to matter a lot. When I graduated from college in Chicago and worked right outside of Chicago, I made right in the middle of that, my first job out of college. It's a great place to start. As a first-year employee, you're going to be doing a lot of what I called the grunt work, right? So your first job, expect that you are going to be doing predominantly journal entries, account reconciliations, variance analyses, and reporting. These are going to be, I think, the majority of what you have ownership over. You'll probably have ownership over a business unit or a specific kind of group of businesses. That's what you're going to be doing. I would encourage you to keep your first job for at least 3 years. A year and a half in, you're probably going to start to feel like you want to do more, like you want to change, like you want to grow. There may be opportunities for that within your company, but I encourage you not to leave that company for at least 3 years. Once you reach that 3-year point, you can then decide if you want to go to a new company or push for a new role internally. If you're perfectly happy, then no need to do anything at all. The other thing I'm going to throw out there is, in my experience, the best way to make more money is to change jobs. So if you come out of college and you get your first job and you're making $50,000 a year and you're there for 3 years, they're going to give you probably 3 to 5% on that $50,000 salary every year. You might get a promotion, which would be awesome. They'll probably give you 5 to 7% on that base salary. In order to make big, significant salary jumps, I have found that I've had to switch jobs. I think that's okay, but the 3-year rule, I think, applies across the board. If you can do it, if you can stick it out, I would encourage you not to switch jobs any sooner than 3 years. So, staff accountant, financial analyst, step 1, FTD. 3 years later, I decided to go to Altisat. I was then, senior accountant there. So as a senior accountant, you start to get a little bit more of what I think are the fun responsibilities. You start to have, yes?
Sorry, I hate to do this
No, please.
because I'm fascinated by it, but we do have a class, I believe, that meets in here at 1 o'clock, and a lot of these folks have to get to 1 o'clock class. So if you have some closing thoughts that
Sure.
would take like a minute, I'd be interested in hearing those, and I'm sure they would too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the only thing that I want to kind of close with is an accountant position forever? It's not. Accounting is an amazing foundation for anything that you want to do in the business world. It's going to benefit you across the board, whether you choose to stay a true accountant, choose to make a little bit of a left turn into something business related. It's a phenomenal career path with unlimited potential. That is really my closing remarks. You guys have any questions?
So no time and a half for that holiday work?
Not usually. Typically, you're salaried, so. Good. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.